there are moments when you just don't feel called, you know. Because here's the thing, I don't think we always have to be the first in the scene to make an impact. Sometimes the most powerful help comes after the dust settles.
Sabrosura pa' ti que qué.
Hola, Manis. Welcome to Café con Pam, where we share our stories over cafecito. Yo soy Pam, and here we are with another coffee story today. Bueno, el día de hoy vamos a hablar de something that's not super easy because there are moments when you just don't feel called, you know. And it's not because it's convenient, not because it's easy, but because it feels like a responsibility. Besides doing Café con Pam, I am part of HLX Plus, which is a national network built to uplift underrepresented communities and spaces and people. And I also serve as the West Coast president. And I knew the fire that we were witnessing wasn't a headline, it was a heartbeat. One that needed support, one that whispered very loudly, ven porque te necesitamos. So I packed up and went to LA. When we got to Los Angeles, we met up with local organizations that were already doing the work, boots on ground, hearts wide open. But what I didn't expect was to be led by an 8-year-old. There was this little boy, tiny but commanding. He had been helping since the moment the fires hit. He was someone's son whose parents were, or parent, I don't know, were literally there helping. And of course, this kid was there, no hesitation, no complaints, just puro corazón, literal. And he moved through the crowd like a general with a mission. If you are part of my newsletters, you know I wrote about this because it truly touched me so much. Él decía, o sea, si te veía que no estabas haciendo nada, if you were like standing there, he would be like, here's a bag to hand over to somebody, or they need help over there. And so he was on it. And he was literally commanding all of us because our group hadn't been there before. There were other groups, like I said, that were already hadn't been doing disaster relief since the fires happened. And we didn't know what to do. So he was literally like, let's go. And when a child leads with that much love, you listen. And the other thing is that people have asked me, ¿cómo te fue, no? And my answer is, o sea, yo sentía todo al mismo tiempo. I felt all of the emotions at the same time. Gratitude, anger, grief, hope, satisfaction, sadness, everything. And it's like I was standing in the middle of a storm and seeing both the wreckage and the rainbow happen at the same time. And it got to a point where my body could no longer hold the stories, literally. I'm gonna keep it real honest. My body just could not hear another story of what happened, and because it was a lot. And what a privilege for me to say that, right? I'm aware. And some people welcomed us into what was left of their homes. A friend or a primo's garage, a van with a mattress in the back, a borrowed room, and a lended moment of safety. Other people that showed up to get help, they took the bus because their cars had burned. And that was something that was difficult because the relief that we put together was kind of like a drive through, and the requirement was to have a vehicle. And so when we saw a small group, it wasn't a lot of people, but it was a small group of people who showed up, and they were like, we would have shown up in a car, but our car got burnt. The hit. Lots of people told us they lost their jobs, they lost their memories, they lost even the map of what their life used to look like. I remember a story of a woman who said, I barely had time to grab my dog's water bowl. And then we had to leave and exit. Mm. And in all of this, I realized there's no single story to what happened. And no headline can hold it. Even not a YouTube video can hold it. It's a web, intertwined lives, it's shared pain, it's shared perseverance, and all of us land somewhere in the web of stories. Otra cosa es que the fire started on January 7th. By January 15th, we had a call and we made a plan. Y ahí fue donde yo dije, esperemos, let's wait. Not because we didn't care, but because the moment when no one's watching, that's when people still need you. And we didn't want to show up for the headlines. We actually showed up after the headlines. When the camera crews were gone, when the attention had moved on, when it was quiet, and when people were still rebuilding. We brought over $500,000 worth of full-size essentials: detergent, cleaning supplies, personal care, and these were things that I realized people couldn't carry when they were displaced. That's something that I thought about when we had that meeting in January 15th. I was like, wait, we have full-size detergents to give away. What are people going to do with those? They can barely carry their own clothes that they could just grab real quick. They don't need detergent right now. And there was a lot of help happening. But by the time we went, which was in April, they had a garage. They were still borrowing. Many of them, they were still, como diríamos, estaban todavía de arrimados. They were still like borrowing a couch, a corner in somebody else's house. But they had already some element of a space. And they were ready to receive help at that point. We showed up. I truly believe that we showed up at the right time. Because here's the thing. I don't think we always have to be the first in the scene to make an impact. Sometimes the most powerful help comes after the dust settles. When people feel forgotten, that's when we shut up. And frankly, I think that's when it matters the most. The other thing is that we don't all need to show up to disaster zones. I haven't shown up to all the disaster zones, but we can all show up somewhere, to someone. And so the invitation for today, my reflection of what happened that weekend in LA, is to honor where we are, our capacity to support and serve. Choose something you care about, whatever tugs at your heart, whatever it is, and then take one small action. Because when we each move and make change in our own little corner of the world with intention and with love, this is how we can actually create that ripple effect that will go further than we'll ever know. So remember, you don't have to do it all. You just don't not do anything. That's a double negative, but I hope you get it. It was definitely a tough weekend, but I think it was impactful. And yeah, let me know what you think. This is my raw reflection of what happened, and still touched by it, still think about it, and can't wait to continue to do the work, because that's what we do. We show up when we can. We show up in our little corner. And also, one more thing I will say is it doesn't have to be public. I help and volunteer in so many ways that I never share. And so you don't owe your activism to anyone. Just as long as you're doing it from your heart, I think it counts. Bueno, thank you for being here. Como siempre, sigue brillando. Y nos vemos en el próximo cafecito.
Sabrosura pa' ti que.